What is up, everybody, and welcome to Rock Video Rental. I am Brandon, and with me, as always, is Caleb. Dude, we might as well just dive right into it. Have you been watching anything interesting lately?
Well, yeah, worth mentioning would be I finally got around to watching the movie Logan,
All
which
right.
is the I guess you would call it like the finale of Wolverine with X-Men.
Gene Hackman?
Gene Hackman, the best Wolverine ever. I have to say this though. Have you seen it?
I have not.
Okay. Easily by far my favorite X-Men movie, because it is not your typical X-Men movie, which I think everybody's aware of that. I mean, it's rated R, and you know, the trailer gave enough information to people that it was not going to be a typical X-Men movie. But it was a lot more of that raw, gritty, real type movie.
Mm-hmm.
And excellent. Just loved it. And I know we talked about that kind of like with my feelings on The Wrestler. Like sometimes I just really like it a lot better when it's not a happy-go-lucky movie.
Yeah.
And not to dwell on it too long, but I know you and I both share the same sentiments towards a lot of the superhero movies of late, where it's kind of like beating a dead horse.
Mm-hmm.
I really like Logan and like the Batman movies because they're not the happy-go-lucky making a joke every 5 minutes superhero movie. Like more serious, you don't know exactly what's going to happen because, they could kill off characters at any moment, things like that. So just kind of a nice, refreshing feeling for a superhero movie, in my opinion. But
Rock.
what about yourself? Anything worth sharing?
Watching odds and ends of stuff. I started watching the original 1989 American Gladiators.
Nice.
It was a show I used to watch a lot as a kid once it went into syndication.
Oh yeah, I love that show.
Yeah, man, I used to want to be on that show so bad when I was like 7 or 8.
Didn't they have action figures?
They might have.
I
They
thought
had
I
a
had
video
one.
game for the NES. So, yeah, I'd be to watch the whole like first half of the first season, and it's hilarious because once they have the championship of that, and they go into like the second half of the first season, which must have been like later in the year or something. The production value was just so much better.
Oh, I bet.
Like the original was all filmed in pretty much one building. Everything was like, I don't know, the props and stuff weren't that great. Uh, the one that stands out to me is when they do like the joust thing. They had like this weird bridge, and yeah, it was just odd. And then when they came back, it's like everything's all fancy and like the contestants and stuff are wearing like these American Gladiators branded outfits and everything, like
Mm-hmm.
jerseys and all this stuff. Yeah, definitely stepped up the production value. It's kind of interesting to see. Really, other than that, we started watching one of the spin-offs of 90 Day Fiance. It's called Happily Ever After, and it's just crap TV.
Oh yeah.
One of those things that sucks you in because of the drama. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Rock.
Nothing as high quality as Walker Texas Ranger,
Oh yeah.
which is what we're going to be getting into right now.
In the eyes of a ranger, the unsuspecting stranger had better know the truth of wrong from right. 'Cause the eyes of the ranger are upon you. Any wrong you do, he's gonna see. When you're in Texas, look behind you. 'Cause that's where the ranger's gonna
So this week for Martial Arts Month, we are covering a martial arts TV show, which they're few and far between. I would say the most
Ooh.
famous one is probably Walker, Texas Ranger. So we are talking about Season 8, Episode 9, which is titled Fight or Die. It was directed by Michael Priest, and the plot is Walker goes undercover in an Arkansas prison to expose a warden making money on inmate fights.
All right, real quick before we get started, I have to share the amazing opportunity that we missed out on this week. That just happened by accident.
Yeah.
Where we could have been recording this episode on March 10th, which is actually Chuck Norris's birthday. And we did not plan that, but then it didn't work out. So I'm not going to lie. That was a close opportunity there.
Well, let's just admit that, Chuck Norris doesn't have a birthday as a birth week because that one day can't hold up Chuck Norris.
I'm okay with that.
So, speaking of cast, obviously Chuck Norris is Cordell Walker. Clarence Gilliard? So you say his name?
I
Gilliard?
think Gilliard sounds right.
As Trevette. Cherie Wilson as Alex Cahill. Judson Mills as Francis Gage. Frank Shamrock as The Hammer. Randy Savage, the Macho Man, as Whitelaw Lundgren, which is a hilarious name. And Marshall Teague as Lieutenant Tracton. So yeah, basically, I mean, this episode starts off with this cage fight going on in this prison, and this guy is just beating the ever living crap out of this other guy in the ring, ends up actually killing the guy, and this is how apparently we find out he was an undercover cop, and this is how Walker and Trevette find out. And it's an Arkansas prison, and the Arkansas governor reaches out to the Texas Rangers and basically comes up with the idea of Walker going undercover to try to break this up and expose it, because he knows his martial arts background.
Nobody's gonna recognize Chuck Norris,
right? And it's like, is this legal? Technically, a Texas Ranger going to Arkansas, isn't that out of jurisdiction?
I don't know. I mean, I don't really know where Texas Rangers fall under. Is that anything related to U.S. Marshals?
I don't know.
I'm not sure either. I'm pretty sure when I was a kid, I really thought Texas Rangers were made up.
That's a baseball team. Chuck Norris is actually just a left fielder for the team. Well, but the eyes of the Ranger are upon you.
Oh my gosh.
Oh gosh. So yeah, basically, Chuck goes undercover as an inmate, and was it Jake Flint? Was that his made up name?
I
believe so.
It was something Flint. I
I think it
remember
was
them
Jake
referring.
Flint.
Yeah, they usually just refer to him as Flint.
Yeah, and then Trevette, he goes undercover and he becomes a guard. And then their friend, Francis Gage, he goes undercover too as another inmate, but he comes in the day after Chuck does. I guess Walker. I'm just gonna keep referring to him as Chuck because he's Chuck Norris. It's just like when I watch a Schwarzenegger movie or something, I always just refer to him as Arnold.
Yeah, it's kind of tough sometimes not to refer to them as their actual name instead of the character name.
Yeah. So basically, when you get into the jail, the lieutenant that kind of runs everything, he tells all these new guys when you first come in, you go to the hole. go to solitary, and all the guys are like, throwing a fit over that, and while Chuck's in solitary, he's doing like his workouts, and it's kind of like his training montage, I guess.
Yeah, a little Rocky montage.
Yeah, a micro Rocky montage. Um, and at the same time, we're getting like clips of other fights that the Hammer's having, and like I mentioned in the cast, the Hammer's played by Frank Shamrock, who was a like legit UFC champion. Um, if you're into UFC, you probably know who he is. Um, his and probably his more famous brother, Ken Shamrock. I don't know if you ever heard of Ken Shamrock.
Nope.
He's a legendary UFC fighter. I think he's in their Hall of Fame. He was one of their first champions, and he was in WWE for a while
Okay.
in like the late '90s, and he was one of the more popular guys in there as well. But yeah, Frank also was a champion at one point, quite a few times, I believe. So yeah, legit fighter is kind of interesting to see, him get some of the spotlight here. And acting wise, he wasn't great, but honestly, he didn't really do that bad. I was kind of surprised for a guy who's not really an actor. And like UFC isn't like WWE. Like the guys don't have to have any kind of acting ability. I mean, they're just athletes.
Hmm.
But basically, like his character of the Hammer is just like this ruthless, unstoppable fighting machine. And soon as they get this made-up paperwork about Walker, um, his undercover persona, they're like, "Wow, this guy's legit." So we
Yeah.
definitely need to get him in there.
What was the story? He killed the officer by just punching him once.
Yeah.
Wasn't that the story?
I feel like that's almost a setup for a Chuck Norris joke.
I know, that was just like such a Chuck cliche.
Yeah, and at the same time, like this Lieutenant Tracton, he tries to like test Trevette too, as like, um, because he doesn't try after they had like this undercover cop come in and like, that the Hammer killed earlier in the episode. They don't really trust anybody, so he kind of puts him to the test, and he's like, if you're as good as you say you are, go into the cell here. Like, we have word that they made a shank. He's like, all right. He tells these two guys to get out of the cell. They refuse to. So he's like, well, I guess you're just going to have to take them out then. So he goes in and starts like fighting with the guys, and he just like lays waste to them, which was pretty awesome. That was a great scene.
Hmm.
And Trevette says to him, he's like, should I waste my time tearing this place down, or are we just going to admit that they didn't have anything anyway? So now he like he trusts him. He's like, okay, this guy's legit.
This guy's cool.
Yeah. This guy can handle himself, I guess. Um, so he's spending this whole time trying to convince these guys that he is, he's not a cop and he's real. Um, and he's got like a cell phone hidden in a radio in like his room, I guess, that he's staying in.
Yeah, like bunk room or whatever.
Yeah, so that's kind of funny. Um, and they put like a crazy backstory made up for Gage as well when he comes in, and he starts off as talking trash to the lieutenant, which is kind of hilarious. It's like, does the ugly come from your mother's side or your father's side? That made me laugh. Um, so they're like, oh yeah, we got to get this guy put in a fight, and because they had a crazy backstory with him where he's like a former Marine who got a dishonorable discharge for killing someone in a fight, and then once he left, he got arrested for killing a couple more guys in bar fights, and it's just kind of hilarious. Um, so now they decide, like, okay, we got to get this Jake Flint, aka Walker, into the D block where all the fights happen. So they transfer him over. He instantly like has kind of a small run in with the Hammer, which it's obvious that that's gonna happen. But then he also has his first fight against Macho Man Randy Savage.
Yeah, that escalated quickly.
Yeah, and this episode is was it from 1999, I believe. So this
Yes.
is like peak steroids Macho Man. Um, like back in the 80s when WWF blew up and the Macho Man was a huge deal. Probably like the second most popular guy behind Hulk Hogan. Which I mean, you say second most popular, and you're like, oh, whatever. But like, a lot of people don't realize like how huge the WWF was in the '80s, and like how like enormous of a star that Hulk Hogan was. So to
Mm.
be like the second most popular guy was still a pretty big deal. um, but like back in the day, the Macho Man was was a pretty decent sized guy, but he wasn't like overly huge or ripped or like veins popping out everywhere. But in the late '90s, when he was in WCW, um, yeah, he must have been on steroids for sure. Because he's ginormous in this, and you can even still see it when he was in the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie as Bonesaw.
Oh yeah, Bonesaw.
Bonesaw's ready.
I forgot about that, man.
That's kind of what this reminded me of too, because they're in a cage fighting.
Hmm.
But we get this like back and forth between Walker and uh, Macho Man fighting, and Walker ends up winning, and he puts basically the Macho Man in a sleeper hold, makes him like pass out, kind of refuses to finish him off, because Walker of course is an honorable man. uh, which leads to a kind of funny situation. Is like the next day where Macho Man walks up to him and they make it seem like he's gonna start a fight with him. Uh, but he ends up holding his hand out, shaking his hand, and saying like he appreciated him not finishing him off. Basically, like he showed some class or whatever, and he's like, "But don't try that with the hammer because if you do that, he's gonna end you."
Yeah,
Which
so much class in prison.
so right. And what cracks me up is that scene and that confrontation, and how you're like, "Oh my gosh, like is he gonna try to like fight with him again?" Dude, that's how the Macho Man was in real life. Like that's how he talked. That was his real voice. That's the way he spoke all the time.
That's crazy.
And there's a lot of old wrestlers that tell stories like that. One of them was Diamond Dallas Page. He told a story kind of similar to that, where he thought that Randy was going to be mad at him, but he told him like how he appreciated a phone call thanking him for what he did for him. And he's like, at first, it's like I thought Randy was going to come like beat me up, but that's just the way he was. He was always so intense. But yeah, a little side story there. But anyway, so at the same time, Trevette's giving kind of like up updates of all this and sending it back to, um,
The
I guess
office.
like the office.
Yeah, the
Uh,
cavalry.
Yeah, giving him updates of the case and all this. Uh, and after that fight, the Hammer tells Walker he's gonna have a party and that he's invited, and he's like gonna have these women there and stuff. And Chuck just turns him down. He's like, "Hey, when I invite someone to a party, they never say no." And Chuck's like, "Well, I did."
Ooh.
Which just cracked me up. So of course now he's on like his crap list, and he wants to fight with him. And Trevette breaks it up and decides he's gonna put Chuck on kitchen duty, and he has to clean like the grease traps. And
Yeah.
that's kind of a funny back and forth there, where they're kind of like debriefing back and forth to each other, and um, Walker just says to him like, he's like, "Yeah, but why grease traps? Like seriously." And he just looks at it. Trevette looks at him. He's like, "Well, that's why it's called doing hard time." So he's like, usually I'm your sidekick. It's like puts him in his place, kind of, which kind of cracked me up.
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
And all this leads up to, Gage has a fight. He like wins, and he's impressive. They're having like a tournament, and now it's like, oh, we're gonna change the rules here, and uh, the Hammer wants both you guys. He's gonna fight one, then the other, and during this, they also find out that Trevette, uh, Walker, and Gage are all cops.
Yeah, during the actual fight.
Yeah, during the actual fight. So, they tell the Hammer, it's like, these guys are cops, you know what to do. So, the Hammer's out to kill him. Hammer starts off with Gage, and we get a pretty like awesome fight scene. Like this
Yeah.
whole final fight is pretty great.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Lots of action, lots of hard hitting and everything, and he's about ready to finish off Gage when Walker jumps into Cage and he starts fighting, and uh, he doesn't dominate like he normally does in the show. That was kind of surprised me. So the Hammer's actually getting the better of him for a little while, and then like a riot starts. They pull out a gun to like shoot Walker, and the Macho Man comes in for the save. It takes the shotgun, but like when he smacks the gun up out of the guard's hand, and he ends up shooting the Hammer and killing him.
Yeah, and the special effects for that bullet wound were super realistic.
It was horrible. He's got a shotgun and shoots him like point blank, and it looks like somebody just threw a blood capsule at him.
Honestly, it looked like somebody threw just some jelly on his chest. Strawberry jelly.
Yeah. Oh man, that was so bad. Because it looks like he was standing next to someone who got shot and just got splattered.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, it didn't look like a wound at all. So yeah, that's like when they get everything under control, and like the rest of the cops show up and break it up. And that's really the end of the episode.
Yeah.
That scene where the Macho Man goes for the save, and he's like, "Look out, Flint!" Like, smacks the gun up. That cracked me up. Um, Doing the Macho Man impression is one of those things. It's like a slippery slope for me, because once I start it, I can't stop.
No, it's funny, man, because you do a really good job at it, so I'm not
Okay.
complaining.
Yeah, just the guy's voice was hilarious. Yeah, just a guy that definitely went before his time, because God, man, how long ago was it he passed away? Like 10 years ago or something.
Yeah.
That was a while. But yeah, we get kind of like a funny exchange between Gage and Walker at the end, where he says something to him about, yeah, I softened up the Hammer for you. And he's like, yeah, he was really soft.
Yeah, it was so cheesy.
It was super cheesy, but it was funny at the same time, because Walker was actually getting his butt kicked there for a little bit by the Hammer.
Yeah. No, I part of the thing with this, as you were kind of saying, like all of a sudden it quickly ended there.
Yeah.
I forgot what it's like to drop in to the middle of a show on some random episode and just watch one episode.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we're living in the day of streaming, so if you're going to watch a show, you start at the beginning and you watch the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but back in the day when I would go to my grandparents' house for like the holidays and stuff, because we didn't really have a TV as a kid, I would just watch whatever. Walker Texas Ranger was one of those things that was on, and you would just watch an episode. You wouldn't have the backstory of everybody. You wouldn't know all the characters and what they did. And that's exactly what this was like watching this episode. So it was really kind of funny to see how much they tried to cram into one, what was it, like 45-minute episode or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Without commercials, it was about 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And dude, I forgot that Gage was even a character. Like, I knew Trevette. Because him and Walker were like partners.
Mm-hmm.
And like I knew about Alex and the old dude is like the captain.
Yeah. No, I totally
But
forgot about Gage too. I'm wondering when he showed up.
and like I wondered too if like um Judson Mills, the guy that plays Gage, was he a martial artist? Because some
Mm,
of his fight scenes are pretty decent. I was kind of surprised.
yeah, I'm not sure. Walker, Texas Ranger. He was in 47 episodes.
So he probably came towards the end of the run because this is a second to last season.
Okay. And then, so he was in 47 episodes while
Yeah,
there were.
his hobbies are some sports and taekwondo. So he
Okay.
knows kickboxing,
Yeah.
which wasn't
And
surprising because some of the kicks and punches and stuff he had like really good form and looked like he knew what he was doing.
mhm. There were 196 total episodes. So, yeah, he was in about a quarter of the show.
Okay, yeah. I think, dude, some of the fight scenes in this I feel like looked pretty good because you obviously got Chuck Norris who you know world champion karate fighter, and did a lot of like fight choreography and stuff for movies before he became like an actor. Trained a lot of actors too, and you got Frank Shamrock, legit, UFC fighter. You got the Macho Man, who professional wrestler, which is choreographed fighting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, and I mean, you got some of the characters that there's nothing in the credits about them. I'm sure there was like other wrestlers and like fighters and stuff in that too. Like some of the guys you can see in the background are just like huge muscle heads.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, I was like, I wonder who that guy is. I bet you he was like a wrestler or something. Um, yeah, I thought, for a TV show, the fight scenes were pretty good.
Yeah.
And this idea would have been pretty good as a movie. It kind of reminded me at times of like Death Warrant with Van Damme.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say too, like, I mean, there's nothing too special about the story because it's been in other things. I can't recall directly,
Yeah,
but the
it's not like a
idea,
new idea of a cop going undercover in a prison.
well, even like the idea of a prison staging fights between prisoners.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think it was like Criminal. Wait, was it? No, it wasn't Criminal Minds. Some my wife was watching the other day, the other month that had the same kind of concept. So, but then I was thinking about that's when I was thinking about how much they crammed into a 45-minute episode where, usually it'd be like a full length movie that they would try to do something like that. And here they have to flesh out, the plot, the main villains, give them a little bit of character development so you learn to disdain them or whatnot and all
Hmm.
this stuff where week in and week out they're adding new ones usually for a show like Walker Texas Ranger where you watch other shows and for a whole season they have like a main villain that they can build up every week in and week out, and this one they're just like boom, this is what's going on. Like this whole episode was a single episode.
Oh yeah.
There was no previous build up to it, so
Right. It's kind of a standalone,
mm-hmm.
just like a one-off. Um, he talked about establishing characters and doing it rather quickly. Dude, that lieutenant, what a jerk that guy was. He's
Yeah,
easily hateable. That Marshall Teague, the actor, played him. He did a
yeah.
really good job, I thought.
Mm-hmm. Well, then,
Probably, I would say he's probably the best actor in this episode.
yeah, I think so. Charles Napier is a pretty good actor too, but he really didn't do a lot. I was surprised when I saw him. I was expecting to see more of him, but he didn't show up
Yeah,
that often.
the warden.
Yeah, you
He's one of
recognized
those
him, right?
guys that, like, as soon as you see his face, you know who he is.
Yeah,
He was in a few things. He was in Silence of the Lambs.
yeah.
He was in
Rambo.
Rambo First Blood Part 2. He was Murdoch.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, just recognizable guy. So there was a character on this called Tom Munger.
Okay.
Do you know who he was played by?
No.
Richard Norton,
Okay.
who was the bad guy in the movie that we reviewed last week. He was
Hey,
Giancarlo.
I had no idea.
Yeah, so that was kind of funny to see. I wasn't paying like too close of attention to some of the other side characters, so I didn't really like catch them all that quick.
Dude, what the heck? This guy was in Mad Max Fury Road?
Richard Norton was.
Yeah.
He's a legit martial artist too, dude. I think he was in some Bruce Lee movies.
He looked like he knew what he was doing in Mr.
Mr.
Nice
Next Guy.
Guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Prime what the I gotta figure out who this guy is now. Anyways.
Yeah, I think he's been in a few um Walker episodes.
Hmm.
But I think he might have been one of the guys that was just like kind of one of the background fighters in this one. Maybe fought in like an earlier fight or something.
Okay.
Um, yeah, but he was in a few Walker episodes from what I'm seeing. But yeah, I thought that was kind of funny. Um, you know what I mentioned earlier? Like Frank Shamrock did a decent job from a guy who's not an actor.
Yeah.
Yeah, he wasn't great, but I mean, it'd be like going to find a basketball player and like, here, act in this episode. Like he's just an athlete. Uh, Macho Man, he's the Macho Man. Just need a tough guy with a grizzly voice. Then you got Macho Man Randy Savage. But I said this to you when I watched this. I watched this twice. This episode twice. But the first time I watched it, it was the first time I've watched a Walker Texas Ranger episode probably like 10 years.
Oh yeah, for me too.
And like I said to you, I'm like, man, I forgot how bad of an actor Chuck Norris is. Martial artist, awesome. Actor, not so great.
Not so much.
Yeah. And I watched some of his movies not too long ago too, like Missing in Action 2, things like that. But yeah, not great. His line delivery is pretty wooden at times. And I mean, this is like the 8th season, so it seems like he would have got a little bit better.
Well, he's kind of got a very narrow acting range scope.
Yeah, I'd agree. And Clarence Gilliard as Trevette, he's pretty solid. He's a pretty likable guy. He's a lot better actor than Chuck Norris, I'll say. But I mean, you want to get into like maybe some favorite parts and stuff? I mentioned like that final fight scene was pretty great.
Rock.
Uh, yeah, just choreographed really well, I guess. Believable. Uh, Lots of cool like moves and kicks and stuff from Chuck. Some of like the throws and stuff were pretty impressive. You did a couple arm bars in it, which is cool, and a couple like chokeholds and stuff. Like I said, he knocked the Macho Man out with like a sleeper. That was pretty cool. Um, yeah, I mean, really, other than that, the other thing that I liked was kind of like the exchange between the lieutenant and Gage when he first goes into prison, and he, like I said, this is ugly coming from your mom's side of the family or your dad's side. That cracked me up.
Yeah, they did. I mean, as I mentioned, for how fast this moved and everything, they had a couple of relatively witty, written out interactions and scenes.
Mm,
Like that one, for instance, and then several times with Trevette in his undercover role.
mm.
He had some interesting stuff. So
Yeah, I guess the other thing I'll point out that kind of made me realize that this was a late '90s TV show was the music. during the fight
Mhm.
scenes and stuff was like industrial hard rock. And you know what it reminded me of was How I Met Your Mother and Robin's old boyfriend from Canada, played by James Vanderbeek, his song Murder Train.
Murder on the murder
Murder
train.
Train. That's what it reminded me of.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
What was his name of his band? Was it the Five Skins or the
The
Four Skins or
foreskins.
something?
Oh
That
man.
was a great show. Oh yeah. Um yeah, that the music just cracked me up. And I was like, I wonder who did this music, and I looked it up and it's really no one like special.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no one really of note. I was like, it wasn't bad, but it was definitely a product of its time. Um, Here I can get the band for you here if you're interested, or the band of the guy that did it. It was some guy named Jeff Koch,
Hmm.
or Coach, spelled Koch. And he's a Geoff, not a Jeff.
Choth.
Uh, yeah, and you look up Jeff Koch and nothing really comes up. Just a bunch of random dudes. So probably just a dude with a guitar. They can get him for cheap. But I noticed when we did this episode, this would be the first time I didn't have any trivia or facts. I couldn't find anything anywhere. And there's websites like there's Walkerpedia, which is devoted just to like Wikipedia pages for Walker, Texas Ranger, and they
Mhm.
had nothing for this.
Did
So
you were you looking for the whole show or for this episode?
just for the episode.
Okay.
If I was looking for
That
the whole show, I probably could have found something, but
yeah, I was gonna say I was just like there's gotta be some for the show, but
I'm sure.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I guess, instead of that, how about we just do a Chuck Norris joke?
That'll work.
That's kind of what Chuck is known for now. You want to go first?
Sure. Yeah, I was looking through some. I had a couple, and I don't know. I feel like there was one I heard one time that was just obviously my favorite and the best one, but I did not come across it. So I went looking for one and just kind of came across some and picked my favorite. Um, and the one I decided to go with is Chuck Norris can kill two stones with one bird. I still remember hearing that for the
Oh
first
my
time and
gosh.
cracking up over it.
Yeah, mine's one of them I heard a long time ago too, and I just reminded myself with it. But man, I don't remember when these things really took off. It was like the early 2000s, I think.
Yeah, I feel like that's right.
It's like when Walker Texas Ranger ended, the Chuck Norris jokes kind of took off from there. Um, and mine is Chuck Norris doesn't read books. He just stares them down until he gets the information he wants.
Oh man. Yeah, I've
Oh,
heard that one before too. Actually, ironically enough, you mentioning that time frame is kind of interesting because I wonder if they kind of took off when Chuck Norris kind of ended his acting career.
yeah, I mean, he really hasn't done much since other than commercials for the Chuck Norris Toll Gym
Well, he
and his cameo in Dodgeball.
yeah. Well, he did even after Dodgeball, he had pretty regular acting until 2005. But
Hmm,
then after that, so in the past, 15, 16 years, he's had 4 appearances. And one was his appearance in Expendables 2.
yeah.
His little voice thing in the Goldbergs
Hmm.
was the other one. And then he did one episode for Hawaii Five-0, and he did something with TNA Impact Wrestling.
Really?
That's it. Since 2005, there were those 4 instances. So yeah, essentially, like he finished acting in 2005 because he had the Walker Texas Ranger movie come out in
Yeah.
2005.
Yeah, the reunion movie.
Yeah. So
And now there's a Walker Texas Ranger remake with Jared Padalecki. Just called Walker.
walk hard.
The Dewey Cox story? Dude, that's a movie that I still want to review sometime.
Yeah, we'll have to.
We should do like a movie, like a music movie month. But it's
Ooh,
all like music based movies.
yeah.
Be interesting. But you want to get on to grades now?
Rock.
All right. You want to go first? You want me to go first?
You can go first this time. I think I went first last week.
All right. So I'm not as like familiar with Walker Texas Ranger as you are. Well, I guess we don't have two sources to pull from this time. We got IMDb. You want to take a guess of what the rating was for this episode?
Oh, I think I saw it.
Okay, well I'll just say it. It's a 7.2.
Yeah, that's why I saw it, which is shocking.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, it's not like the greatest episode ever
No.
of a TV show, but I mean, for what it is, you get a lot of action, a lot of fights.
Mm-hmm.
And, like I said, the fights are pretty well done. So I would give it a higher rating than some of the other episodes I've seen. But like I said, I haven't seen as much Walker Texas Ranger as you have. Uh, I think I watched it a couple times with my grandma because she used to like it.
I watched every episode twice. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh my gosh.
I've not watched it that much.
You could now.
Yeah.
You could stream it. But yeah, I mean, that being said, I didn't have like much of a nostalgic connection with this show. Like I said, I was reminded of how poor of an actor that Chuck Norris really is. Um, but I love the Macho Man, so it was kind of funny seeing him in something else. He didn't really do too many things outside of wrestling, so when I find those things, it's always kind of like a diamond in the rough, I guess. uh, which we'll talk about some more Macho Man acting next month, but we'll talk about that another time. If you guys saw the trailer that I released today. But yeah, I enjoyed it. It wasn't like the greatest thing ever, but I like fight scenes, and this had quite a few of them, and they were like legit and entertaining, well done fight scenes. So I really can't complain there. Um, and, it did remind me a little bit of Death Warrant with Van Damme,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean, I don't know. It's not a bad thing. I love that movie, so. Like I said, this is one I'd probably go back and watch again sometime just for what it was. I mean, I couldn't give it a 5 because, it's not a 5 out of 5 TV show. It's
Oh
not a
yeah,
5
no.
out of 5 episode of a TV show
Mm-mm.
that's not a 5 out of 5. So, I kind of took it as an entertainment value, and, I gave it a 3.5. I thought that was pretty solid.
Okay.
What about you?
I was not as generous. I hated it. Sucked.
Oh,
No.
it's all right because I hated you.
I don't know. I've got a list now. I don't know if you do this too, but I'm kind of looking back at what I've rated things before and trying to keep it in context a little bit. And so I gave Mr. Nice Guy a 3.5,
Hmm.
and I think Mr. Nice Guy was easily better than this.
Oh, yeah, acting wise, for sure.
Yeah. So I was between a 2.5 and a 3. Um
Okay.
so I think I'm gonna go with a 3 because I feel like 2.5 is like you're getting into the point of bad.
Hmm.
not good, which this was not the case. Like it was good. It wasn't anything excellent, amazing. As you were saying, it's not like a 5 out of 5 or anything. I mean, obvious things where the acting could have been better by even the lead man himself and other factors like that. But yeah, I think landing at a 3 is a pretty good score for this. So
Yeah, pretty solid. I guess I kind of like the corny, cheesy stuff a little more than you do. So I guess it kind of makes sense that mine would be a little bit higher than yours. But yeah, I mean, if you guys enjoy Walker Texas Ranger, or you're just like, a Chuck Norris fan, if you're a Macho Man fan,
yeah.
or maybe there's some Frank Shamrock fans out there,
Or maybe
give this
you're
one a watch. I think the Walker Texas Ranger is streaming on Pluto TV.
okay.
That's, I think. We had kind of other means of watching it.
Yeah.
Um,
Or if you're a Richard Norton fan, now that
yeah.
apparently like we're fans and are watching his movie. I've watched 3 of his movies in like the past 2 weeks.
That's hilarious. I've gone on streaks like that too. I mentioned to you that I was on a Eric Stoltz streak somehow. Just randomly pops up in movies. It's kind of funny when that happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is it for Walker Texas Ranger Fight or Die, the only options. We're going to be continuing on with our martial arts month. Next week, we will be discussing the Steven Seagal classic, Hard to Kill, a movie that I've seen quite a few times. Have you ever seen it?
I think so. I've seen a few of his movies and I can't remember if that was one of them.
Yeah, I'll say it's one of his better ones. Not to really give it away, but I mean, he's got a lot of terrible movies.
Spoiler alert.
So until then, as always, be kind, rewind.
Power too sweet to be sour, funky like a monkey. Ooh, yeah.